Guillermo Rigondeuax defeats Hisashi Amagasa over there in Japan. This was a pretty entertaining fight, which you can't say for most of Rigondeuax's fights. This was entertaining. Amagasa, typical of a Japanese fighter, very brave, very reckless, pretty much crazy in his approach. I don't know what it is with Japanese fighters, but a lot of them are like this. They seem to be crazy. They just come forward. They don't care what you're throwing at them. They don't care how much you hurt them. They're going to keep coming at you. And that's exactly how Amagasa was. The first half of the fight was all Rigondeuax. He was moving a lot though. Amagasa was extremely tall for the weight. And I mean extremely tall. The guy's like, what, 5'11" or something like that, and Rigondeuax's like 5'3", 5'4". So the height difference was massive. It looked cartoonish. But despite the fact that Rigondeuax was giving away a hell of a lot in height, he was still controlling things from the outside, because he's one of those guys who has very long arms for his height. And he was controlling Amagasa from distance and what have you. But I felt that Amagasa's pressure, because he was relentlessly coming forward and cutting off the ring and forcing Rigondeuax to work, I felt that Amagasa's pressure by the halfway stage of the fight was started to get to Rigondeuax, and Rigondeuax's legs, I think, were getting a bit tired from all the moving. And in the 7th round, Amagasa landed a right hand and actually dropped Rigondeuax. Now, Rigondeuax wasn't hurt. It seemed more like a balance shot rather than, you know, the effect of a concussive effect of a punch. I think it was a balanced situation. Rigondeuax wasn't hurt at all. He sprang straight back up. But nonetheless, if a punch lands and a guy goes down from it, it don't matter if he's off balance or he wasn't hurt. It still has to be called a knockdown by the referee. So I ain't got no problem with the ref calling it a knockdown. Then Rigondeuax went down shortly after that from what seemed like a shove and a push. But the Japanese crowd and the commentators are very excitable. Any of you who have watched Japanese boxing before will know that the crowd and the commentators are always very excitable. So they were going crazy. In fact, they were going crazy anytime Amagasa even got close to landing a punch. They were going crazy. So when he actually dropped Rigondeuax and the second knockdown was really more of a push, they were going crazy. And obviously Amagasa was energized from that. But from that moment on, Rigondeuax got really mean, and he decided to hold his feet and actually stop moving around and take the fight to Amagasa to try and keep him off. And it worked, because Amagasa was far more cautious about throwing punches and pressuring Rigondeuax once Rigondeuax started holding his feet and letting his hands go up close. So if Rigondeuax had done that earlier in the fight, I think he probably would have stopped Amagasa sooner than he actually did. But nonetheless, from the 7th round on, it turned into a bit of a war. Amagasa trying, but Rigondeuax landing that left hand repeatedly. He was also landing some nice little right hooks here and there, right hooks to the body as well. And eventually, was it the end of the 10th or the 11th round? I think the end of the 10th round, Amagasa's corner decided to pull him out. His face was all types of messed up. I believe he had a fractured orbital bone or fractured cheekbone or something like that. So, yeah, Rigondeuax marches on. Some people are going to be alarmed that he got dropped. I wasn't particularly alarmed, because he's been dropped before. He was dropped by Cordoba. He was shaken up a couple times by Marroquin. He was dropped by Donaire. So it's not the first time that he's been dropped. Rigondeuax is no stranger to the canvas. His chin, I wouldn't say he's got a weak chin, but his chin definitely isn't the strongest aspect of his game. His whole thing is accuracy, speed, timing, punching power, especially in his left hand, defense, balance, reflexes. Those are his strong points. His chin, not so much. So I wasn't surprised to see, you know, him get dropped. He's been dropped. He's been rocked before. If you can actually get to him before he gets to you. Amagasa was extremely tough. Not many fighters would have been able to take all those left hands the way that Amagasa did. Amagasa certainly was taking Rigondeuax's punches better than Nonito Donaire did. I can tell you that. So we'll see where Rigondeuax goes from here. It was a pretty entertaining fight. Like I said, if you haven't seen it, I think it's still up on YouTube. It's the Japanese version. So it's pretty entertaining. Will any of these other champions in Rigondeuax's weight division fight him? Or in other weight divisions? Is there anyone who's willing to step in and fight this guy? Any of the big names? You got people out there like Carl Frampton, obviously, Leo Santa Cruz, Scott Quigg, you got Vasyl Lomachenko, you got Nicholas Walters. I personally think that the most dangerous fight out of all them for Rigondeaux would be Nicholas Walters. Nicholas Walters is not the best boxer out of those guys. In fact, he's probably the worst boxer out of those guys, just in terms of boxing skills and what have you. I think the other guys are probably technically better than him. But I don't think technical boxers are going to be the people who give Rigondeaux the most problems. I think it's going to be a big strong guy like Nicholas Walters, who's tough as well, who can come forward and put him under relentless pressure and hurt him. I think those are the guys that are going to give Rigondeaux problems. I think someone like Vasyl Lomachenko, although he is a tremendous boxer, I think Rigondeaux has seen that kind of style a million times in Cuba and in the amateur system. And I don't think he'll have that many problems with Lomachenko, to be honest with you. I'm not saying it'll be an easy fight, but I see Rigondeaux winning that fight. I don't think Lomachenko would win it. I think Rigondeaux, even though he's shorter than Lomachenko, probably doesn't have as quick a feet as Lomachenko. But Rigondeaux's feet are quick. Don't get it twisted. He can move when he wants to, as he did in this Amagasa fight. But he's got longer arms, I'm sure, than Lomachenko. And I don't know. I just think he'll be too awkward for Lomachenko to deal with. I think Rigondeaux will probably win that fight. And that's a fight that could potentially happen. But yeah, let me know what you feel about Rigondeaux against any of those guys. I think he beats them all, but Walters, to me, would be stylistically the most difficult fight for Rigondeaux, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but I guess we'll wait and find out if any of these guys actually decide to step in the ring with him. So drop your comments below and let me know how you feel about this whole situation, this fight and what have you. Who you think Rigondeaux will fight next, if anyone will fight next, because any of these names will fight him next, because he's having to fly to the end of the earth to fight obscure Japanese opponents because none of the other champions are willing to fight him. So let me know how you feel about the situation. This is Hatman, I'm out.